Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Today we're unpacking how a legendary masterpiece was forged, not just by brilliant coding, but through an absolute creative war inside the studio. We're talking about the original 1993 release of Doom. This isn't just your standard story of a bunch of guys making a game. Oh no. It's a fascinating look at what happens when two totally opposite creative visions violently collide in a dark, cramped office, affectionately known as Suite 666. By the end of this explainer, you'll see exactly how the intense friction that nearly tore the team apart actually created a timeless cultural phenomenon.
To really set the stage for this massive ideological clash, we have to start with this infamous quote from lead programmer John Carmack. He said, "Story in a game is like a story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important." Carmack was a total technical genius and the main driving force here. He firmly believed that speed, innovation, and gameplay were the absolute undisputed kings. He wanted to drop the player right into the fire. But, not everyone in the studio agreed with him. The lead game designer had a completely opposite philosophy, and this fundamental disagreement became the defining conflict of the entire project.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the idea and the Doom Bible.
So, on one side of this clash, we have creative director Tom Hall. He methodically drafted this massive design document known as the Doom Bible. Hall really wanted to build a deep, character-driven sci-fi narrative. He mapped out an entire plot on the alien planet Tenga, complete with 5 different playable characters, interactive computer terminals, and a whole cinematic storyline about a portal to hell. He even wanted players to interact with everyday objects, like riding around on office chairs. But then, on the other side, you have John Carmack's vision. Carmack basically rejected all of it. He didn't want a deep plot or multiple characters. He just craved raw, uninterrupted demonic action. He envisioned a straightforward, brutal experience where his groundbreaking technology took center stage.
Moving on to Section 2, the id Tech 1 engine revolution. Carmack's action-heavy vision was completely fueled by his groundbreaking new 3D engine, id Tech 1. And guys, this tech literally broke the rules of the 1990s. Before this, in titles like Wolfenstein 3D, everything was just flat, boring 90-degree mazes. But Carmack's engine finally introduced dynamic heights, meaning you could have stairs and platforms. It also allowed for non-orthogonal walls, so rooms could be built at arbitrary, weird angles. But the real kicker? Diminishing lighting. Instead of calculating complex ray tracing, the engine manipulated color palettes, so surfaces actually got darker the further away they were. This meant terrifying enemies could literally melt into these receding, pitch-black shadows. It was a complete game changer.
But here's the thing. This incredible new technology directly fueled the creative conflict. Tom Hall, sticking to his realistic design philosophy, kept trying to build levels that look like actual military bases. Flat, logical layouts with rec rooms and supply depots. Well, Carmack and co-founder John Romero flat out rejected them. They felt Hall's designs were way too flat and completely failed to show off the complex architecture their new 3D engine was capable of. This pushed Romero to step up and create his own levels. His architecture was abstract, chaotic, and full of curving stairs and toxic waste pits. Romero even laid down a golden rule for the team. If you make a section in your level that I could have made in Wolfenstein, you failed.
Which brings us to Section 3, vision conflict and the firing of Tom Hall.
Inside Suite 666, this tension was building for 8 long months. In November 1992, Hall drafts the Doom Bible. But by December, Carmack, who held the absolute key role in making all technological decisions, rejects Hall's concept of a seamless world because of hardware limits. By mid-1993, Hall is incredibly frustrated. His realistic level designs are being tossed out, and he's constantly arguing with Carmack over simple gameplay features. The rest of the team starts feeling like Hall just doesn't fit the brutal, fast-paced vision anymore. Finally, in July 1993, the ideological war ends. Tom Hall is forced out of the company. To hit their deadlines, they brought in Sandy Peterson, who impressively cranked out 19 levels in just 10 weeks, completely embracing that abstract, high-tech style Carmack and Romero demanded.
Let's look at Section 4, clay, toys, and graphics creation.
Despite all that internal drama, the art team was busting their backs, turning Carmack's code into a tangible nightmare. And it's actually fascinating. The most advanced digital graphics of that era started entirely analog. Step 1, artist Adrian Carmack and Kevin Cloud literally sculpted demons out of clay and latex. Step 2, they placed these sculptures on a rotating table and used stop-motion photography to capture them from 5 to 8 different angles. Finally, step 3. They digitized these photos and converted them into 2D sprites that could realistically rotate inside the 3D environment.
The sources for these analog assets were wild. To make those iconic weapons, they literally went down to the local Toys R Us, bought plastic toy guns, and bashed them together. That famous chainsaw? It was a real McCulloch chainsaw they borrowed from Tom Hall's girlfriend. And to get the perspective right for the hands holding the weapons, Kevin Cloud just photographed his own arm. What about those gritty, hellish textures on the walls? They scanned Adrian Carmack's snakeskin boots and even took a picture of Kevin Cloud's real, bleeding, wounded knee. They used whatever physical objects they could find to create this horrifying digital world.
And finally, Section 5, From Marines to National Canon.
Ultimately, John Carmack's brutal, tech-first vision won the internal war. And the results? They completely changed digital culture forever. The finished software was so visceral and revolutionary that its multiplayer initially crashed corporate networks around the globe. But even more amazingly, the military saw its value. In 1997, military engineers actually modified the engine into Marine Doom, a tactical simulator used to train real U.S. Marines in squad coordination and combat. Then, a decade later in 2007, the Library of Congress officially inducted it into the National Game Canon, preserving it as a crucial historical artifact of American culture.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a massive what if. We just saw how John Carmack's relentless focus on pure speed, abstraction, and technological power forged a masterpiece. But do you think this release would have achieved this legendary cultural status, crashing networks and training Marines, if Tom Hall's story-driven vision had won the battle? What if it had followed the Doom Bible, prioritizing a slower, cinematic narrative over raw speed? It's a wild alternate reality to think about. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into a brilliant piece of tech history. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you in the next one.